The film begins by introducing the main character, Bear, a shy and kind-hearted young man who has been secretly in love with his best friend Nikki for a very long time. Nikki means everything to him, and he has dreamed of confessing his feelings countless times. In fact, he even wants to propose to her. But every single time, fear takes over, and he never finds the courage to tell her how he truly feels. Determined not to let another opportunity slip away, Bear gathers his friends and starts practicing his proposal in front of them. He rehearses every word, trying to make it perfect. Seeing his confidence slowly build, his friends encourage him and tell him that it's finally time to meet Nikki and confess everything. Their support fills Bear with excitement, and for the first time in a long while, he genuinely believes things might work out. However, the happiness doesn't last for long. As soon as he returns home, he discovers that his beloved pet cat has died. The heartbreaking part is that it happened because of his own mistake. Bear had accidentally left his medicine out in the open, and the cat consumed it. Overwhelmed with guilt, he completely breaks down, blaming himself for the tragedy. The loss affects him so deeply that he isolates himself from everyone. Days pass without him speaking to anyone or even stepping outside his house. While he's trapped in grief, life continues moving forward without him. That's when he receives another devastating piece of news. Nikki is about to leave the country to continue her studies, which means he may never get another chance to tell her how he feels. Realizing that this could be his final opportunity, Bear decides he can't let fear win again. Soon, Nikki sends him an invitation to her party, and he immediately understands that this is the perfect moment to confess his love. Without wasting another second, he gets dressed in his best clothes, stands in front of the mirror, and once again practices the proposal he has imagined for so many years. Before heading to the party, Bear stops by a jewelry store because he wants to buy Nikki a special gift. But choosing the perfect present turns out to be much harder than he expected. Surrounded by countless options, he finds himself completely confused, hoping that whatever he picks will be worthy of the woman he loves. To choose the perfect gift, Bear asks the salesgirl for help, and with her suggestion, he finally picks out a beautiful locket for Nikki. Even after buying it, his nervousness refuses to go away. Half-jokingly, he asks the salesgirl if she has anything that could magically change his luck and help him succeed. The salesgirl laughs at first and shows him a few lucky charms. None of them catch Bear's attention. Then, his eyes suddenly fall on a strange wooden stick with an inscription claiming that it can grant one wish to whoever uses it. Curious, Bear picks it up with a smile and jokingly asks whether it actually works. This time, the salesgirl's expression completely changes. Her smile disappears, and she looks at him with unusual seriousness. She warns Bear that everyone who has ever used that stick has had their life changed forever, and never in the way they expected. Her words are enough to make Bear uneasy for a moment. Still, he quickly brushes the warning aside. He has never believed in supernatural stories or magical objects. But today is different. This isn't about money or success, it's about the person he loves the most. Hoping for even the smallest bit of luck, Bear decides to take the mysterious stick with him. Soon, he arrives at Nikki's party, where everyone is having a great time. Despite carrying the locket with him the entire evening, Bear can't gather the courage to give it to Nikki. As the party slowly comes to an end, he realizes that his chance is slipping away once again. Not wanting to lose this final opportunity, Bear quietly signals his friend Ian, asking him to take the rest of the group away so he can spend a few moments alone with Nikki. His friends immediately understand what he's trying to do and casually leave one by one, giving the two of them some privacy. Bear then offers to drive Nikki home. As they travel together, he keeps telling himself that this is the moment to confess everything. He wants to reveal his feelings, hand over the locket, and finally propose to her. But when the moment arrives, his mind goes completely blank. Every word he had practiced disappears, and no matter how hard he tries, he simply can't find the courage to say it. Throughout the drive, Bear has 100 different things he wants to tell Nikki. He keeps searching for the right words, but before he realizes it, they've already reached her house. Once again, fear wins, and he stays silent. Nikki steps out of the car and begins walking toward the gate. Unable to let her leave like this, Bear finally calls out to her. Nikki turns around and asks what he wants to say. For a brief moment, it seems like he's finally going to confess everything. But just like every time before, the words refuse to come out. He remains completely silent. Even though Bear says nothing, his eyes reveal everything he has been hiding. Nikki notices it immediately. Looking straight at him, she softly asks the question he never had the courage to answer himself. "Do you love me?" Hearing those words leaves Bear completely stunned. His mind goes blank, and he simply stands there without saying a single word. After waiting for a response that never comes, Nikki quietly turns around and walks away. Only then does Bear realize what he has just lost. It was the perfect opportunity. The girl he loved had practically confessed his feelings for him, and all he had to do was say yes. Instead, he let the moment slip away. Desperate to fix his mistake, Bear panics and remembers the mysterious stick he bought from the jewelry shop. With nothing left to lose, he breaks it and makes a single wish: that Nikki would love him with all her heart. The moment the wish is spoken, the atmosphere changes completely. An unnatural silence fills the surroundings, making it feel as though some invisible magic has actually begun to work. But Bear has no idea what he has just unleashed. As Bear prepares to drive away, he suddenly notices Nikki still standing near the gate, staring at him without moving. A second later, she runs straight toward him and asks a shocking question. "Can I come home with you?" Confused, Bear asks what happened and why she's acting this way. Something about Nikki feels terribly wrong. Her eyes look strange, almost as if she's in pain, or terrified of something invisible. She tells Bear that she's scared and doesn't want to be alone tonight. She insists that she needs to stay with him. Although the situation feels unusual, Bear doesn't suspect anything supernatural. Believing she's simply frightened, he agrees to take her home with him. The moment Bear agrees, Nikki gets into his car. Strangely, she falls asleep almost as soon as she sits down. Her sudden change in behavior leaves Bear completely confused, but he decides not to question it and drives her to his house. After reaching home, Bear gently wakes Nikki up. She quietly walks inside, enters his room without hesitation, and sits down on his bed as if she has been there many times before. Surprised, Bear asks why she suddenly decided to come to his house when she never had any such plan before. Nikki suddenly breaks into tears. She tells Bear that both of her parents are seriously ill and that her mother is in the final stage of cancer. She says she's terrified of facing all that pain alone and desperately needs someone to be with her. Watching her cry, Bear believes every word she says. Feeling sorry for her, he sits beside her, and Nikki gently rests her head on his shoulder. Seeing Nikki so close to him feels almost unreal. The girl who had always seemed distant is suddenly showing him more affection than ever before. Instead of feeling happy, Bear becomes nervous. Deep down, something about the situation doesn't feel right. Then, without any warning, Nikki's behavior changes completely. It's as if she suddenly wakes up from a trance. She looks at Bear with confusion and asks, "What are you doing here? And why am I here?" Before he can answer, she pushes him away, leaving him completely speechless. Bear tries to explain that she was the one who insisted on coming with him, and that they're now at his house because of her own request. Nikki simply stares at him, trying to make sense of everything. But only a few moments later, her expression changes once again. She suddenly starts smiling and laughing, almost as if an invisible force has taken control of her mind again. Soon, she becomes unusually affectionate toward Bear, acting as though nothing strange had happened. That entire night, Bear is unable to sleep. Nikki's sudden personality shifts keep replaying in his mind. The way she first acted lovingly, then completely forgot everything, and then returned to normal again, makes him realize that this can't be a coincidence. For the first time, Bear begins to suspect that the mysterious wish he made with the magical stick may actually be responsible for everything that's happening. Bear slowly realizes that none of this is real. Nikki doesn't actually love him. Everything that's happening is nothing more than the effect of the magical wooden stick. Instead of winning her heart, he has unknowingly trapped her inside an illusion. The thought fills him with guilt, making him feel as though he's taken advantage of the person he truly loves. The next morning, Bear immediately starts searching for information about the mysterious wooden stick. He looks everywhere on the internet, hoping to find an explanation or a way to undo the wish. But no matter where he searches, he can't find a single piece of information about it. The complete absence of any record only makes the entire situation even more terrifying. Still struggling to understand what's real, Bear walks into the kitchen. That's when something horrifying catches his attention. Beside the body of his dead cat lies a strange wooden soldier figurine. Even worse, the cat's body appears to be changing in an unnatural way. The disturbing sight leaves Bear frozen in fear, but before he can process what he's seeing, Nikki lovingly calls out to him, forcing him to hide his panic. The two of them then leave for work together as if everything is perfectly normal. Nikki is unusually cheerful and excited. Meanwhile, Bear tells his friend Ian everything that happened the previous night, including the fact that Nikki stayed at his house and even wants to spend more time with him. During their conversation, Bear casually asks Ian why he never told him that Nikki's parents were seriously ill. Ian immediately looks confused. He tells Bear that Nikki's parents are perfectly healthy and asks who told him such a thing. When Bear replies that Nikki herself said it, Ian becomes even more shocked. Ian explains that none of it makes any sense. Nikki has never behaved like this before. In fact, she has never even stayed at Bear's house, and she never had romantic feelings for him. Ian quietly admits that everyone already knew Bear was in love with Nikki, but because she never felt the same way, nobody had the heart to tell him the painful truth. That revelation hits Bear like a truck. Everything Nikki said the previous night was completely false. At that moment, he no longer has any doubts. The magical wooden stick really is controlling her, and the terrifying consequences of his wish have only just begun. The more Bear thinks about everything that's happening, the guilt becomes unbearable. Deep down, he knows that Nikki doesn't truly love him. Every bit of affection she shows is only the result of the magical wish. Instead of winning her heart honestly, he's forcing emotions that were never real. It feels as though he's stealing someone else's free will, and that's the last thing he ever wanted. Even though Bear decides he should stay away from Nikki, he finds it impossible to do so. Nikki constantly wants to be with him and showers him with more love and affection every single day. As time passes, the two spend nearly every moment together. They eat together, work together, laugh together, and slowly, Bear begins living the life he had always dreamed about. For a while, it feels like he's finally found happiness, as if he's living in paradise. One evening, Bear takes Nikki out for dinner. During their conversation, he carefully asks about her parents and whether they are actually sick. The question instantly changes Nikki's expression. Her cheerful face suddenly turns completely serious. She quietly says no, but only for a moment. Almost immediately, her behavior begins changing again. She repeats different answers with different emotions every single time. One moment she looks confused, the next she's angry, then she suddenly starts laughing for no reason. After that, she falls completely silent before unexpectedly bursting into tears. Watching her shift between so many personalities terrifies Bear. It's becoming painfully obvious that something inside her is completely broken. Not wanting to make things worse, Bear ends the dinner early and brings Nikki back home. But even after returning, her strange behavior doesn't stop. She refuses to leave his side for even a few seconds. She follows him everywhere he goes, even waiting outside the bathroom until he comes back. The constant attachment that once felt romantic now starts making Bear deeply uncomfortable. That night, the two finally go to bed. But sometime after midnight, Bear suddenly wakes up. As his eyes adjust to the darkness, he notices Nikki silently standing in the corner of the room, completely motionless, staring directly at him. As the nights pass, Nikki's condition becomes even more disturbing. One moment she's laughing uncontrollably, and the next she's crying without any reason. Her behavior is so unnatural that it almost feels as if something else is taking control of her body. The cheerful girl Bear once knew seems to be disappearing right in front of his eyes. Then, in the middle of the night, Nikki suddenly sits upright and slowly begins walking toward Bear. Her movements are stiff and unnatural, almost as if she isn't even human anymore. With an unsettling expression on her face, she leans in close and silently stares at him. Every step she takes feels more like a demon than a person, sending chills down Bear's spine. Without any warning, Nikki suddenly twists her face into a horrifying smile and tries to scare Bear. Startled, he jumps in fear. But just a second later, Nikki bursts into laughter and falls back onto the bed as though it was all some harmless prank. Bear forces himself to believe that's all it was, but deep inside, he knows something is terribly wrong. As each day passes, Nikki's love for Bear becomes less like affection and more like an unhealthy obsession. She spends hours doing nothing except staring at him. Even her smile has changed into something unsettling. Instead of making Bear happy, it now fills him with fear. The girl he wished for is slowly turning into someone he no longer recognizes. Unable to handle everything alone, Bear decides to talk to his friend during lunch. He admits that although he always dreamed of Nikki loving him, the person standing beside him now isn't the Nikki he fell in love with. She constantly follows him, watches him, and behaves in ways that genuinely frighten him. Instead of feeling loved, Bear now feels trapped. As they're eating, Bear takes a bite of his sandwich but immediately notices something feels wrong. The taste is strange, and an uneasy feeling washes over him. Confused, he opens the sandwich to see what's inside. What he finds instantly horrifies him. Hidden inside is what appears to be the flesh of his dead cat. The shocking sight fills Bear with disgust and rage, leaving him completely speechless. The horrifying discovery completely shatters Bear. His heart starts racing, and the shock is so overwhelming that he immediately throws up. Unable to control himself, he drops his lunch and rushes away. At that moment, he realizes the Nikki he once knew is gone. The person standing beside him now can't possibly be the real Nikki. Bear becomes convinced that some evil force has taken control of her. Nothing about her behavior feels human anymore. No normal person would ever make someone eat a sandwich filled with the flesh of their own dead pet. The more he thinks about it, the more certain he becomes that something supernatural is behind all of this. When Bear returns home, he finds Nikki in another disturbing state. She appears to have just eaten something, and a strange liquid stains her mouth. Her eyes glow with an unnatural satisfaction, almost as if she has accomplished something horrifying. The sight is enough to send another wave of fear through Bear. Trying to hide his panic, Bear tells Nikki that he's going outside for a while and asks her to freshen up. The truth is, he simply can't stay in the same house with her anymore. Every second he spends near her makes him feel even more unsafe. A few days later, Bear attends a party at Nikki's house. Everyone is delighted to see the two of them together because they all know how deeply Bear has loved Nikki for years. But at the same time, everyone finds the relationship incredibly strange. They know Nikki never had feelings for Bear before, yet now she's showing him an unbelievable amount of affection. As the guests quietly whisper among themselves, Nikki notices the attention they're giving Bear. Almost instantly, her expression changes. She stands up, looks at everyone with terrifying intensity, and suddenly declares that they're all going to die. The room falls silent as every guest stares at her in complete confusion. Then Nikki continues speaking, insisting that Bear belongs only to her and that nobody else has the right to come close to him. Her words no longer sound like those of a loving girlfriend. They sound like the obsessive warning of someone, or something, that will do anything to keep him all to itself. Nikki's words leave everyone speechless. The way she speaks about Bear no longer sounds like love. It sounds like a dangerous obsession. Even Bear realizes that whatever he wished for has gone far beyond simple romance. Something has gone terribly wrong, and the magic is twisting Nikki into someone completely different. Before anyone can calm her down, Nikki grabs a glass bottle from the table and smashes it into pieces. Then, without showing even the slightest fear, she presses the broken glass against her own face. The horrifying scene sends the guests into complete panic. Terrified, everyone rushes out of the house, while Bear apologizes on Nikki's behalf and tells them that she's been mentally unwell lately and needs medical help. Once everyone leaves, Bear can no longer hold back his frustration. He angrily confronts Nikki and demands to know what's happened to her. He asks why she's behaving this way and whether she's trying to punish him for something. Nikki calmly replies in a strange voice that nothing is wrong and slowly moves closer to him once again. This time, Bear immediately steps back and refuses to let her come any closer. He finally admits that he can't handle her obsession anymore. What he once wanted has become a nightmare. Determined to end it, he tells Nikki that he's taking her back to her own house and that she can no longer stay with him. The moment those words leave his mouth, Nikki's expression changes completely. Rage replaces the affection on her face. Without saying another word, she storms into the kitchen, grabs a large knife, and slowly begins walking toward Bear. Bear freezes in shock as Nikki approaches him with the weapon in her hand. He stumbles backward and falls to the floor while desperately trying to get away. Every instinct tells him to run for his life, but Nikki refuses to let him leave. Staring directly into his eyes, she declares that neither of them is going anywhere, because they belong together, and they will stay together forever. The moment Nikki hears Bear's words, she suddenly throws the knife away. In an instant, the terrifying rage on her face disappears, replaced by the same unnatural affection as before. She gently takes Bear back to the bedroom and spends the entire night holding onto his arm as she sleeps, refusing to let him out of her sight. Late in the night, Bear notices that Nikki has finally fallen into a deep sleep. Seeing his only chance to escape, he carefully slips his arm away, quietly leaves the house, and immediately calls his friend Sarah. She has been worried about him for days, so the moment they meet, Bear tells her everything that's happened, including Nikki's terrifying behavior. Just as he's about to reveal the truth about the mysterious magical stick, everything takes a horrifying turn. Back at the house, Nikki wakes up and realizes Bear is gone. Panicked, she rushes outside and soon spots him standing beside Sarah. The sight instantly fills her with overwhelming jealousy. Before either of them can react, Nikki charges toward Sarah's car. In a terrifying burst of violence, Nikki smashes the car window and repeatedly slams Sarah's head against the steering wheel. The attack happens so quickly that Bear doesn't even have time to scream or pull her away. Within moments, Sarah is dead. The horrifying scene unfolds right before Bear's eyes, leaving him completely frozen in shock. Bear's mind goes blank. He can't think, move, or even understand what has just happened. His only instinct is to run for his life. But before he can escape, Nikki calmly walks around the car, embraces him as if nothing had happened, and acts as though they've simply shared another normal day together. At this point, Bear is completely broken. He knows he can't keep living like this, but he also has no idea how to stop the nightmare he created. Finally, he decides to return to the same jewelry shop where he bought the mysterious wooden stick. There, he tells the salesgirl everything from the beginning, how he made a wish for Nikki's love, how the magic twisted that wish into a living nightmare, and how he desperately needs a way to undo it before even more innocent lives are destroyed. The salesgirl listens to Bear's entire story and sadly tells him that there's no simple way to escape the curse. Once a wish is made using the magical wooden stick, it will always come true. The wish cannot be taken back, erased, or reversed, no matter how much the person regrets making it. After thinking for a long time, she finally comes up with a possible solution. Although Bear can't undo his own wish, another person can use a different magical stick to make a new wish that might restore his life. It isn't guaranteed to work, but it's the only hope Bear has left. Without wasting any time, Bear buys another magical stick and rushes to meet his friend Ian. He explains everything from the beginning, including how the stick works, the nightmare it has created, and how Ian's wish could be the only thing capable of saving him. Ian understands the seriousness of the situation and agrees to help. Holding the magical stick in his hands, Ian prepares to make a wish that will return Bear's life to normal. But at the very last moment, greed takes over. Instead of wishing to save his friend, he wishes for endless wealth. The instant he breaks the stick, money begins raining down from the sky. Watching the cash fall everywhere, Bear realizes he's been betrayed once again. His own friend chose riches over saving his life. The last bit of hope Bear had disappears in front of his eyes, leaving him completely devastated. Broken and exhausted, Bear returns home. As soon as he steps inside, he sees Nikki waiting for him in the same terrifying state as before. Her unsettling presence reminds him that nothing has changed. The nightmare is far from over, and Bear is now more frightened than ever. Completely broken, Bear suddenly remembers one final detail the salesgirl had mentioned. She had warned him that, although a wish could never be undone, it would come to an end if the person who made the wish died. It is the only way to break the curse forever. Bear quietly walks into the bathroom and swallows a handful of tablets. He accepts his fate without fear, because he believes his death is the only way to free Nikki from the nightmare he created. A few moments later, he slowly walks back out and looks at her with a gentle smile. Without saying a word, he steps closer, gives her one final kiss, and holds her tightly. As the poison begins to take effect, his body grows weaker. Within seconds, he collapses into Nikki's arms and takes his last breath. Watching Bear die right in front of her shatters Nikki completely. She breaks down in uncontrollable tears, desperately hugging his lifeless body and begging him to wake up. The pain becomes unbearable, and in that moment, she decides she can't live without him. She is ready to end her own life so she can stay with him forever. But just as she's about to do it, something suddenly changes. The dark magic finally comes to an end. The unnatural obsession controlling her disappears in an instant, and Nikki slowly regains her senses. The memories of everything that happened under the curse vanish, leaving her confused and emotionless. She stares at Bear's dead body for a few seconds with an empty expression. The desperate love she felt only moments ago is completely gone. To her, the body lying in front of her is nothing more than a lifeless corpse. Without a single tear or a hint of sympathy, she casually pushes Bear's body aside as if it were a dead animal lying in her way, then quietly turns around and walks away, leaving him behind forever.